Hamita Tibi. Yushki on Champapi. Raine Cloud on Champia. When I sit on toy at Wati, Nakota, Bedeu Kantuanga, Wahbetuan Hamacha. Sisima Wahbetuan, Oyake at Omawapi, Tokunuan, Hamatahan. Minnesota Women's Bay will country at Dwani. The Korea online audio journal coordinator Himacha. Naku Zoom Ohana, the Korea Women's Bay Chawake. Wani to Shake Wahihaya, the Korea Uspemich here.
Hamita Pipi. Chante washte na pechi uzafia. Ya hipikia washte. Anke al-Bataineh makiapia. Wamashijo. Minnesota wazieta hemata ka video dautunga doti. Kamija Minnesota wons be wankated. Dakota pia wons be michichie. Wani dudoba ka ya video dokicha wa wons be wichawakia ka wons be wichakia pikiana o wichawakia ka Dakota makoche teacher Dakota pia wons be michichie he wopita tanka ka ampetu kinde de wa on ka wa ka bi aheja wo bi da tanka cha kila maya ya bi
So to begin with, we're gonna start with a little demonstration, and we're gonna have a hands-on experience. So we're going to ask maybe 5 volunteers to come up here, and this is just going to take about 15 minutes, and maybe 5 volunteers to participate with us. Anyone? Anyone fun? You? Yes, that's animals.
Gomesha, unim. Gomesha, unim. Gomesha, unim. 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 Gomesha, unim. Hima, gamata, unim. Gamata, unim. Ma, sarta, unim. Shata, unim. Unim. Pare. Anke M. Oves. Of unis. Unim. Şartlar sarta unim ol. Sarta unim. Sarta unim. Şartlar. Sarta unis. Şartlar. Merci. Paref. Anke M. Şartlar. Of unis. Gamat unim. Şartlar. Merci. Paref. Anke M. Oves. Şartlar. Of unis. Gomesh. Gomesh. Gomesh unim. Şartlar. Merci. Şartlar. Wana. Summer. Gomesha unis. Da. Durinzi gomesha. Durinzi. Merci. Merci. Khantram. Bolor. Khantram. Ha. Kovidu. Khantram. Merci. Khantram. Bolor. Merci. Khantram. Şata. Raine. Paref. Gomesh. Merci. Khantram. Raine. Of unis. Şartlar. Gomesh unim. Şartlar. Durinzi gomesh. Durinzi. Merci. Khantram. Şartlar. Khantram. Şartlar. Shirin. Merci. Of unis. Gamat unim. Şartlar. Durinzi gamat. Merci. Khantram. Şartlar. Şartlar. Merci. Khantram. Şartlar. Merci. Alex. Of unis. Şartlar. Dur inzi. Sartı. Merci. Şartlar. Bolore. Dur inzi. Sartı. Dur inzi gomeşi. Dur inzi gamatı. Hima. Sartı unis. La. Khantram. Şartlar. Shiri. Dur inzi that, baby. We're gonna discuss that in just 1 second, but I just want you to see the schedule of what we're gonna be doing together today. We're actually going to have this session and the session after lunch. We really hope you'll join us for both because it's all one workshop. And thank you for our brave volunteers. There will be more awkward opportunities to volunteer, so thank you so much. And there's also a workshop tomorrow in the afternoon that is related to this, so we hope you can make that as well. The last session tomorrow, also in G with Shishokuruta, it's also related to this, so we hope you can make it to that as well.
So, how did that feel?
Nerve-wracking.
Anyone?
Sorry, not me.
Nerve-wracking. One thing. How did that feel? What was it?
Good, bad, ugly?
Awkward.
It was fun.
Strange. Fun?
Fun. Awkward to get my mouth to hit those words.
Fun, awkward,
Mysterious or something.
mysterious.
What was mysterious about it?
It's like an open space and you're in a new place.
Open space in a new place.
Yeah.
Oh.
You notice I was making my voice friendly?
Friendly voice.
Yeah,
Fun.
that's actually very important. That's a good observation.
Open for imagination. Open for interpretation, curiosity. It's good.
Very welcoming too.
Welcoming.
A lot of welcoming gestures.
Welcoming gestures. So what was the teacher doing that was unusual or different,
Like technique-wise.
technique-wise?
You,
Repetitive?
repetitious, sound. The sound barrier is very important in the language, so it has to be set. And make them, if it's over and over again, they need to know that.
Huh. Repetitious, over and over. Anything else, the technique that she was using? Stayed in the same language? No English?
Using the hands to kind of demonstrate, like, this is what I'm meaning by this, kind of universally, so that you don't have to go back to a different language.
Right, so using hand gestures, universal hand gestures to get the point across.
A lot of praise.
Read my mind. A lot of praise.
Lots of praise.
Lots of visuals.
Lots of visuals.
Confidence building.
Confidence building.
To the subject.
Check this in the mail. Thank you.
She connected with each of her students.
Connecting with each one of the students. Anything else?
Okay, great observations. Some things I hoped you would say and some things I hadn't thought of. Really great. So I just want to say that the techniques that you saw me using were actually all based on research into how the brain learns language. And I'll explain that research very briefly and simply in a second. But actually, even though each language and culture is very different, the brain, the human brain, unless there's an injury or something like that, it always learns language the same way. And interestingly, it pretty much learns a second or third or fourth language the same way it learned its first language. So of course we know that when we teach adults, they're much more demanding than babies, but as much as we can replicate the baby experience, the more effective we are. And so this is all about being effective. And I'll say here, by the way, does anybody know what language that was? Not that it matters. Yeah.
French.
Close. Anyone else for $1 million? It doesn't matter at all, is really the point. $500,000 for everyone who guesses French. That was Western Armenian, which is an endangered language from the Caucasus and Turkey. Doesn't matter, but but the important thing is the methods worked. Even though you didn't even know what language you were even learning, you just immediately knew what to do, and you learned how to do an interaction in that language. So if you ever meet someone from the Western Armenian diaspora, and you want them to give you a buffalo, you're ready. Okay? You're welcome. Okay. So, we are running ahead of time. Can you even believe that? It was supposed to be a 15-minute lesson. It was only a 10-minute lesson. So 10 minutes you got that much Western Armenian. Okay, so research shows us that the basic way that the brainwage learns language. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna start a company called Brainwage. Okay. That the brain learns language can be summed up in these 4 F's, which I find helpful for memory. I literally say these 4 F's to myself every single time I plan a lesson. This is how helpful I find this research. So I'll just explain what they mean. Function. So we've been talking about the difference between function and meaning. Meaning, when we say, what does that word mean? We often think about the translation. Like we often mean, what's that word in English? But as you know, when we're dealing with Dakota and English, that often doesn't work. It doesn't mean hello. It doesn't mean hello. It means something. It has a different. But when do I say that? Who says that? Who says it to who? In what situation? That's the function. And by removing translation and speaking only the target language the whole time, the students also don't think about translation. They just know, oh, when I want her to give me the thing, I'm supposed to say, do it in Z. That's the function of saying, do it in Z, is that she'll give me the thing. They don't sit around and say, oh, dur is the imperative form of dal, which is the verb to give, and in Z is the instrumental case for the first person. Not only do fluent speakers not think like that, but the learner won't go very far if they think like that. It's better that they know, situation, say this. So we remove the translation completely and they learn the function of it. Say this in this situation. That requires us to be acting out the situation though. We can't write them a book about the situations, we have to actually experience it. The form, oh, and this is why you saw so much visuals, so much gestures, so many hints to what it means, because I want them to get the function. It's no good if they're repeating something I said and they don't know why we're saying that. Then we're wasting everyone's time. Form means how you say it, saying it correctly. So you said that there's tons of repetition, but also lots of clearness, and I was trying to really speak up. And when there was a hard word, what was the hard word? Saft. So that's a different sound that we don't have in English, or really even it's not quite the same as Dakota. But so we say, so I actually stopped and went, so that they could get, what am I hearing, right? And then I put it back together, saft, saft, saft. So that's to get that good pronunciation. And the other thing about the form is that the whole phrase is together. Durinzi. Again, they don't need to know where the word begins and ends. They just need to know that you say durinzi. When they get to be better speakers, they'll know which word is what and why it's that way. But in the beginning, they just need to know how it flows. That's form. Frequency, repetition, 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 repetition. These innocent victims will go along for the first lesson or two with me just literally saying the word over and over and over again and making them just say it over and over and over again. That'll work for like a day or two, and then they'll hate it. So instead, I have to get clever, and we make games, we make activities, so that throughout the lesson, they actually do use the same phrases over and over and over again, but they're doing something different. That's really the hardest part of thinking of the lesson is, how can I get them to use the same language in a different activity? And we'll show you the lessons for this course in a little bit. And the other thing about frequency is that we can't just learn those phrases on one day. Because even if we repeat them 10 trillion times on one day, I promise you tomorrow someone will have forgotten. So they have to come back again tomorrow, and they have to come back again 4 days later, and they have to come back again 9 days later, or they'll be forgotten. We can't just go in a straight line. It has to loop around. That's the frequency. And that when you were a baby, you spent literally years just listening to people talk before you talked. So all those words that you started to say when you said mama and give me and more and whatever language you were learning, you had already heard them like 10 billion times. So we can't do that in our class, but as close to 10 billion as we can get is good. So we have to have frequency. And then the feedback was what they said, showing that it's good, showing that it's right. If the person hasn't said it yet, waiting, looking like, I need you to say it, I don't understand you yet, so that they know when they're understood or not. Did I get it or not? Did you understand me or not? That's what happens with babies. When we say, wow, that was good, they're like, I did it, and it sticks. So we need that too, and that means that we have to be a little obnoxious. Good, shut up. But it feels good, and it's that warmth, feeling welcome, that friendly voice. That's all feedback that says, this is a good experience. I'm happy here. I want to do this. I want to stay here. I can try. And most importantly, it's okay if I don't know. She'll help me. It's okay if I say it wrong. She'll help me. That's the most important thing. If the feedback is, you said it wrong, that'll be the last time they try. Right? If the feedback is, no, that's not what I taught you. No. That's it. We're done. Right? It always has to be great. Good job trying. Great. Yeah. Keep trying. Right? So those are the 4 pieces that research gives us. And then the last piece is that we have up here is backwards planning. Might not be a good way of saying it in Dakota, but we tried. The idea is every single thing we learn, every single phrase we learn, is leading to a goal, is leading to something that they're going to be able to do. There's no list of words you have to memorize. There's no, chapter you have to finish in the book or something like that. Everything is always going toward an actual interaction that we're going to be doing. So my goal for this lesson was that they'd be able to give each other, politely, give each other something and ask for something, and they achieve that goal. But when I start planning the lesson, we say, what do you want them to be able to do today? And then we figure out what are they going to need to know to do that. And then we put it in order. So it's always backwards. Forwards planning, sometimes we talk about that as the colonial way or the old way of teaching. Sometimes we say traditional way of teaching, not meaning Dakota traditional, but like Washichu traditional. Is basically like, I'm a teacher, here's what I know, I'm going to tell it to you. And I don't know why you're learning it, I don't know how you're going to remember it, I'm just telling it to you. That's just coming in and going. Backwards planning means I know what the goal is, and that's why I'm doing this, because we're working toward the goal that we've already planned. And then for us, when we teach the course, we judge ourselves by whether the students did meet that goal. Were they able to do the interaction at the end or not? And that tells us whether we did a good job in the course or whether we need to change it. And we always change it.
So this is a really different way of teaching. Instead of, like how she said, acting like a teacher and being that authority of knowing all the knowledge, right? We kind of think of this as a humble way of teaching. Because I think in order to be humble, you can't really worry about your own self-importance, right? She was my mentor, and one thing that she always said was, our language was taken away in such a brutal way, right? In such a traumatic way, that we need to be gentle with each other. We need to create nurturing environments. We need to encourage each other. We need to be nice to each other. And she was so warm like that, you know, in her teaching. And actually, you know, people are nervous when it comes to learning language. Like I feel like it stirs up a lot of anxiety, even panic. You know, I felt panic myself at times. And it helps to keep things lighthearted. It helps to have a smile, because this smile is like international language, right? Everybody knows what a smile means. Everybody knows what a frown or a scowl means too. And so some of us like internalize those frowns as something else. So when you have a smile and you are helping somebody through something that's kind of a little bit traumatic, because people still carry trauma, like somebody teased me, somebody made fun of me, and I laughed, but it wasn't really funny to me. Or they said I didn't sound good when I talked, or they said I'll never sound good when I talk. You know, and those reasons still hang on us. Or maybe it's like past trauma, like historical trauma that we don't even know we're carrying. And so it's just a nice way to help each other along, and not to think of as a teacher and authority. I like to, I don't like to call myself a teacher. I like to share language. I like to nerd out on language with people. I don't like to be like, I'm your teacher. It's like just a different way of thinking as somebody who's sharing language.
I'm going to show, we have two videos that we're going to show. The reason that the videos is just that it's faster. They're each a little bit less than 10, or around 10 minutes. And then we'll break for lunch, and we'll have more after lunch. Question over here.
You said function as to be the first one.
Yeah.
Can I get you to elaborate on that again?
Yeah.
Function?
I'm using function instead of the word meaning, or instead of the word definition. Function is, when do I say this, and what does it do that I say it? So if I say please, what happens? The person feels that I'm being polite and that I must be asking for something, right? That's what happens. You could say please, what does it mean in Dakota, like ito, or translating it is silly, right? But it does something. When I utter that, it does something. Please, you know what's going on. So if we practice it without translation, they know when to say please. Durinzi. You don't know the whole grammatical breakdown of why it sounds like that, but durinzi means, oh, thank you.
So literally it's basically sounds, and because that's what I'm thinking, because is the more you come across the kids, they catch you. If you're kind of hostile or bad mood, they catch you, and that sound, whatever you give, you're just passing it on to the kids.
Yes. That is what I would say is the definition of form. Form is however you say it, your accent, your dialect, your attitude also. They're going to copy that. In fact, when you see this video, for better or worse, you're going to see how the students sound exactly like us, which is a lot of pressure, and we're sorry for all of our mistakes. We're learners and we do our best, but they really get it because like you said, we make it clear, we do it with our mouth instead of writing it down, we do it with repetition. They get it exactly how we do it, which means we gotta try to do it right, of course.
It's also the approach of how you say it to the child, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely. That's also part of the feedback is like, do I support you? Am I helping you? Are you doing good? Or am I mad and I'm judging you and I'm correcting you, right? Yeah.
Sorry. So I do think it's a really good idea to immerse yourself with like fluent speakers of like a language that you're trying to learn. But like a lot of languages, like Dakota, there's not a lot of fluent speakers, so it's kind of hard to just surround yourself with just Dakota.
Yeah, that's my problem. Yeah. So you know, we are learning as much as we can. Raine has been learning much longer than me, and has worked with fluent elders. I've not had that privilege, so we do our best to create a fun immersion experience to motivate the learners. But there's a lot of imperfections for that exact reason, and that's what we're hoping ultimately in the next few years to create more opportunities. So I hope you can hear this okay. This is basically a mashup of the many times we've done this course as an experiment. We're going to give you the course plan. So we've done a bunch of experiments, and this is the results we got. So you're going to see how they start out and how they end up. The sound gets better, but not great. Sorry for the camera angles. We did the best we could. It gets better. So this is a bunch of groups on their very first day, and then you'll see how they were on their last day with only about 10 hours of training. That's how slow we start out. They don't know that when they start. They're total beginners. They don't know any words. See how the people who are not on the spot are talking and doing the motions.
Kanekaha Tawaniteshni.
Sally.
Chashta nahu okihi.
Vichashta nahum okihi.
Chashta nahu okihi.
Shira Naha Okihishni.
So the main takeaway is that they don't necessarily talk super correctly, and we don't necessarily use super correct language when we're improvising with them, but they talk. They all talk. And they're all feeling positive about the experience. I want to just show you a specific example of a cool success that we had. This was in the pre-COVID times when we were in person. So just about taking risks. So, wow, don't know how to do that. Okay, this was a student who had never heard Dakota before ever and had about 5 hours of instruction. And you see that I like to use the stuffed animals. So this was our stuffed animal. We named him Chapachuita. And so we had finished the class for the day and we all went home, and this student sent a message to the text group with a ransom note that she had kidnapped Chapachuita. And so she's from Argentina, so if you know Argentinian Spanish, it's easier to read this, but this is what it says. Chapachuita Baduha, Chapachuita Yachiha, Ohiwaye. Hahana kaha mazaska wachi, mazaska maku. So 5 hours in, she took this risk to make up a way. She'd never seen Dakota written down ever, never written any words in front of them. She made up her own way of writing, and she put together phrases. We didn't teach a lesson on how to write ransom notes, although it might be something to try. But she made up her own way to write a ransom note based on the language that she learned. So this is exactly what we want to see, is that it's imperfect, but it's communication, and we understand, and she's comfortable taking a risk, and she's not worried that she'll make a mistake, and that she's recombining what she's learned. So she's not just repeating it the exact way we taught it, but recombining it for new situations, which is what we hope they will do in the real world. Do you want to introduce this next video? This next video is distinctly less exciting, but then you'll have lunch break, and then we have things to give you when you hopefully come back after lunch, including the actual course plan, which you can take and use on your own and change it any way that you want to hopefully get similar results.
So this is a visual example of how we do the backwards planning. So we are always working towards the same interaction and task that they can complete in the language, and we have to plan carefully so that we can get there using only immersion. So there's a quick visual of how that process is done. We will be giving you the finished course plan at the end of today. You could change it and use it however you need to in your dialect or whatever.
In the workshop on combining evidence-based.
So then I hope you come back for the second half
We help
because
you
you'll be
create
getting
this
that
list of
course plan.
activities you see here on the right.
So this is how the backwards
In the
planning
workshop on
works.
combining evidence-based
So that we're
teaching
prepared,
methods,
so
we
we
help you
don't
create
have to
this
think
list of
about it.
activities you see here on the right. So if you haven't already, please take that workshop. So I know what communication skills will be used in each activity, and now I'm putting them into a sequence that will make sense for the students. So I know that describing a silent video requires lots of different phrases, and that will need to come near the end since these are total beginner students. Another activity that requires lots of different phrases, plus they have to think on their feet in the language, is playing Guess Who. So that's going to come at the very end, so we have lots of time to prepare for that. I'm graying things out here just to make sure I don't forget to put everything on the calendar. Taboo is a game where they describe a word they can't say or don't know. I know from experience that this is really challenging for beginners, but important. So near the end with that one.
That was one of the great moments that you saw was her saying a word, Dakota Tusweca, and asking for the word in the language, which is exactly a big goal of the course.
Now, learning to sort animate and inanimate has to come after they know the names of lots of things. But at this stage, we're only looking for comprehension, not perfect use. So that can go in the middle. They'll need to already know have and have not by that time so that they can say baduhe, wicha baduhe. The Simon Says game is where they practice giving and understanding commands, and it's important because we're preparing them for an immersion classroom where they have to do that. It can come fairly early on once they know some verbs. We'll put it there. Go fish can come fairly early in the course because they only need to know 10 or 20 objects, have, don't have, and the interaction for asking for something and giving it. We'll try that in the middle of the second week. Uno is actually even simpler to play because they only need numbers to 9, 4 colors, and have or don't have in order to play. So that can come really early. Playing an arcade game where there's movement directions is a little complicated. They have to know the commands, the verbs as well as the directions to move in. So that can come at the end of the third week. By contrast, memory, where they only have to just say what card they have and then whether they have the match for it, is easy enough to play in the very beginning, as soon as they learn have, don't have. Voicing over a cartoon means breaking out and speaking on their own and not just repeating, but I've chosen a very simple cartoon, so they can be ready for that on day 10. However, having them do their own cartoon means using more of a variety of phrases, so that's not going to work until the middle of the next week.
Tuesday. That's what they're, so they use the con, like a con game, but changing it because then it's less fun. Yeah, so it makes sense.
Their first experience of an authentic story is going to be simplified for them and illustrated, but it still means encountering many new words and abstract concepts like wakam. So that's a big challenge toward the end of their first month. We'll start with just understanding that level of complexity. They're far from producing it, but they will be able to feel a real sense of accomplishment to understand an authentic story. Explaining a news story does mean improvising, but with a small number of known words, so they can handle that by the beginning of the fourth week. We had playing memory and just saying what card they have as one of the earliest tasks, but having to tell someone else which card to flip involves movement instructions, so it's more advanced, and it's a good prep for the arcade game activity, which will use the same phrases, only faster. Now, a game where they identify an image that someone is describing, using like, don't like, want, don't want, isn't too hard, but we won't learn those auxiliary verbs until the second week, so it'll have to go in there. Introducing a toy animal we give them comes really early. They learn to introduce themselves, ask about the second person they're talking to, and then third person allows them to talk about the animal. And we'll add in something simple that they can say about the animal to make the activity fun and a little creative. So that goes very early. Now, saying their mood in response to how are you, requires knowing the possible responses, plus the why because phrases, plus some possible reasons why they would be feeling that way. So that's early, but a little bit of a challenge. Probably around day 8 they will be able to do that. Now this task where they describe what's happening in a picture of a classroom means knowing their verbs in the third person, and it's a good activity towards the end because it ties a lot together. It means that they will be able to do group work in the language and talk about each person's job in the group and complain to the teacher if they have a problem. So that can come in the middle of the last week of the month. Describing animals, what body parts they have, and how they're different is a pretty complex task, but it's good preparation for the final activity of playing Guess Who. So beginning of the 4th week will be a good time for them to attempt that interaction. And finally, doing an intro conversation where they talk about their moods, a second person's moods, in different times is more complex than the simple introduction interaction that we did in the beginning, but only by knowing those words for today, tomorrow, yesterday, and then the future marker today. So they should be ready to handle that by the end of the 1st week. So once we have the calendar of the tasks they're going to be able to complete, we can start building out each day's lesson to get them prepared to do those tasks. The calendar tells me what phrases they need to learn and practice by when. If I follow that, they will experience success when they attempt the task and be able to build their confidence in using the language in real life. Of course, I'll be constantly adjusting all the details and shifting the calendar as needed according to how the class really progresses, because we always want to keep the students at the center and make sure the lessons serve them and not the other way around.
Thank you for being here for the first half. The second half features a fun game, and we'll give you all our stuff for you to use if you'd like, and we'll explain a little bit more. We also have a Q&A time then, but I think we can stay a few minutes if people want to ask any questions or make any comments, give us any feedback now. But yeah, that's how we built it, and Raine was just mentioning to me, I was saying that the big success of it is that they talk and they feel encouraged and they want to continue. And then we were just talking about how many of those students from the summer when we had to be on Zoom, how many have continued, including the students who had the hardest time, including the students who had to repeat, who really, really struggled, and some students who are not Dakota also. They just found it fun. So we had a high percentage of people who continued to take it through the school year. So, anyone want to ask any questions before we go to lunch? Yeah.
That curriculum is for adults? Is that
So,
adult curriculum?
I've used it with kids and I've only made a couple small changes, very similar. Actually, it's based on my earlier work with kids. I don't know if you ever tried a total immersion with kids, but that was many years ago that I did that. Yeah. But yeah, we do total immersion with kids in almost the same way. Of course, on Zoom it's more boring. It's better in person.
But we only shared videos of adults because of video permission issues. And also, it's more like an experiment, whereas with kids there's more variation. But with the adults, it was nice to be able to measure them exactly how much they knew in the beginning and how much they knew at the end, and how far they got in the 10 hours or so that they had. Oh yes, yes, you can leave that here, you can leave all your stuff. In fact, I think you can eat here, actually. I think that's how it works. They bring the food here, actually. The visuals that we gave you are just, you saw the students using them in the video, that when we think about what we want them to know at the end of the class, we want them to be able to talk about all the stuff that happens in a classroom and to ask for help from the teacher, because we don't want them to need to use English all the time in the classroom if it's an immersion class. And so these images are some of the ones that we have them describe at the end to show how much they know. And they talk about whether, it's group work, whether it's good, is this person, doing their job, or teacher, she's not helping, or whatever they need to say, so that they would be able to do that in the language when they would go into a classroom where they would be doing group work in Dakota. There's a question?
In this time now, in our day and age now, we have a lot of beginning speakers that are in their 40s, 50 years old now, and a lot of them might have grown up with the language, but they haven't learned how to speak it, and a lot of them never had the opportunity to grow up with fluent speakers like grandparents or parents or great-grandparents. So how would you implement something like that in the older generation, people that are in their maybe 60s, 50s, that really never grew up with the language that are not?
If you didn't hear, the question was that there's a lot of people maybe in their 60s and up who would have grown up around the language but can't communicate now. And so what would we do for them? So I don't know if you want to talk about we had several of those exact type of people in our groups, how they did. We had some in a group with you, but actually I guess 3 of them were in my group, and there was one, yeah, we had a couple with you. So I guess I'll just say, in order to place people in the right level, we just had them do an activity where we just asked them to describe an image. And we started with the simplest thing, just a picture of a tatanka, and we just said, head, go ahead. So everybody could do that. And then we went up to more like, what is this animal doing? And if people could already express that, we put them into the next level. But if they couldn't express that meaning, what's happening, we put them into this absolute beginner. But you're right, some of them actually would recognize words, or especially animals, they knew animals. And we found that they did great, and we were very nervous that some of the people in their 60s or 70s, that they wouldn't want to speak. But with this method where everybody repeats together, they participated 100%, and there were clips of them in the video. I did have to cut this video down. There's a longer version with more clips of them, where they were willing to talk. Maybe they were a little more shy. Maybe they would sprinkle in more English when they talked, but there's no rule against them using English. We don't use English, but they can use English if they want to. And we just say, verstehe, and keep going. And so they did that a little bit more, but we had similar good results that they wanted to communicate. So I'm not sure that I would necessarily change it. I don't know, what do you think?
I feel like having intergenerational learning is really important, because that's our cultural ways, to have this intergenerational learning. And I see it as some people have strengths, so they have strengths of knowing what Dakota sounds like, growing up with it, they know how it sounds good. And then some people, they never heard it, so they can help those who never heard it to sound better. So I think we all that's why I say sharing language, because we're all we have different strengths, different pieces that we bring to the class. And so I think having a lot of ages, And then also, like, the challenge of speaking Dakota is different than the challenge of reading and writing and taking notes in Dakota. So sometimes it's like, challenge yourself to not to use your notes, or not even to use notes, or, you know, to talk from your heart, as they say. So.
I'll finish editing it tonight and put the longer version of the video on YouTube, so if you want to see it for participants and how they did it then, that you can see it on YouTube. Any other questions? Oh, I can't hear. Okay, we'll leave you alone until the beginning of the next session time.